Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello, Blue. Are we? Oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Can we be heard? All right. Got my live
It'd be
stream.
good if I unmuted myself. Sorry about that.
There you go. That'll do it. Hello. Are you standing? So am I. Wow. I feel like we're vertically connected around the globe because we're both standing on a Zoom meeting.
Right? So good.
Hello, everyone. Look, everyone's coming in. A few names we haven't seen for a little while. Um, Great to have you here. Just a reminder that we post questions through the dashboard that you just came through. Ask a question is the button to press, and then we can access that and make sure that we don't miss them. You're welcome to use the chat. It's just sometimes we do miss that. So you can sometimes follow up with questions that are on the topic that we're talking about. But you want to get a question in, the best place is to post that on the dashboard. And sometimes we'll have time to be able to raise your hand and talk through some things as well. So generally the three topic areas that we're looking at are firstly about Obvio. That's the main thing that we're looking at, is how do you do a particular thing using Obvio. You might be looking at a particular function, or what is it that how you go about achieving this on the dashboard. Or um, it's always great when Blue's able to join us too. That sometimes he's got a good eye for design and thinking about how things lay out nicely, and so you might want to pick his brain about that. If you're happy to, you're welcome to share your dashboard, and we can make sure everything's looking right. Everyone appreciates that and learns something about how Ovio works when we do that. The other two topics really are just general online events. We often get questions about how do you structure this, or how would you structure the day, or something like that. So you're welcome to do that. And then inevitably we have production questions, and the geek in both me and Blue can't help but dive into those production techie questions. But we generally keep them for the end. So that's that. I've got given a little preamble for giving time for people to come in. And now I'm going to get the our questions list going. How are you going, Blue?
Good.
Good.
A trick question.
It was the question. The question was, um, what have you been working on recently?
Nothing. Not giving you anything.
Do you know? um, if anyone runs a podcast, maybe don't get Blue on. He's not a great interviewee. Um, I I gave him a couple of softball questions, and he's not running with them.
That's awesome.
All right, just getting this open. I was
I
playing.
mean, I don't. How about this? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Grant. Let me answer it for you a little more fully. I've been working on a lot of different things, most of which are not ready for prime time just yet, and I'm not ready to talk about them.
All right, and what about with Sage? What? How have you been using Obvio recently?
Oh, well, thanks. Great question. This past weekend we had an event for about, I believe there were 1,700 people registered. We had about 1,100 people in attendance, spread over 4 Zoom rooms. At one point, we broke people out into 3 concurrent sessions. That was a very exciting time. And here at the Sage Studios, we recently invested in a new camera and a new wireless roaming rig to allow us to go further from the studio with a wireless video signal. And then we lit a bonfire in a parking lot. was fun, enjoyable. You may think to yourself, that doesn't sound real. Why would you light a bonfire in a parking lot? Great question, especially when it's right next to an electrical transformer. Nope, we did it anyway. Please don't tell my insurance provider. Moving on to the next question, Grant.
All right. Well, that went somewhere I didn't expect it to. Nicely done.
Well,
Uh,
you asked.
I asked. We've got a few questions that have come in, which is great. Kat is asking, is it possible to link recordings to a dashboard for future reference? What is best practice in saving recordings from Obvio Zoom meetings? So, a thing with the recordings that we remember that there are Zoom cloud recordings. We put a disclaimer out there that it is best to always have a recording that you're doing locally, and so that you're capturing the event and not relying on the Zoom cloud recording. That's a good backup. But just even in recent days, we've had a few people that thought that it was recording and it wasn't, and now they have no recording because that was their only way of recording. So that said, we can talk about more about how to record locally later. But the question is
Well,
getting
I would just, let's just sitting on the recording topic just for a moment. Generally speaking, when people lose recordings, it's because they are stopping and starting the recording inside of Zoom. And what I would highly recommend you do is when you start a Zoom meeting from Obvio, the recording will be running. Just don't touch it. If you want to break it down into multiple sessions, at the end of the meeting, download the video and split it up into multiple sessions. It is far more difficult to recreate a recording from thin air than it is to take 15 minutes and cut one big recording into 4 small recordings. Okay. And I know it seems convenient. A lot of people get into a habit of, I'm just going to stop the recording or I'll pause the recording. And then we get distracted and you turn around and you go to get started again and you forget to press record. Or you think you press record, but you didn't press record plus the confirmation dialogue that says, do you want to record? Right? Or you double pressed it and it stopped and started. Like there's any number of reasons why it couldn't happen or why the recording gets lost. And 99.999% of them, it's user error for somebody
Yeah,
who has pressed stop and forgot to press start.
exactly.
So while the Zoom recordings can very much manage your event recordings. Like when Barry and I are on the road and we do a leap call, I don't record the call locally. We record it in the cloud. I have no problem trusting that because I know that I'm not going to stop the recording and start it again. So just keep that in mind. I do agree with Grant that if you have the capability, best practices is always to have a backup recording of some kind. If I were to tell you the backups of backups of backups of backups that we have in our studio, it would probably make your head spin. And we get paid a lot of money to produce an event in our
Exactly.
studio. I can't go to the host and say, I'm sorry, we lost your recording. Like that's just not an option,
Yeah,
right?
but on
Because the host
but
is
on
then going to
those,
say, that's fine. I lost your paycheck
yeah, yeah. But on
and
those,
possibly worse.
to your point about leap calls, it's great to have those, but it's not a showstopper mission critical if for some reason that cloud recording didn't work, right?
I don't know
Like
about
it's
that. I mean, I have people in Leap who have paid $15,000 and that includes the recordings. And if all of a sudden they don't have a recording, I'd say that's pretty mission critical, wouldn't you?
okay, Blue. Well, I'd be suggesting that you start doing a local recording if that's the case. The point
I'm
is,
just saying. I listen. I also do things off of Wi-Fi sometimes. So sometimes I run a little fast and loose with the rules,
yeah. So,
and
so
sometimes it doesn't work. Like, what was it last week or the week before where I was all glitchy?
yeah. So do as we say, not as we do. Um, here's the
Perhaps.
here's the thing: is that um, it's all about what is the cost of failure. And if you've got all of your eggs in that cloud recording basket and it doesn't work for some reason, you've got nothing. Whereas um, recording locally, and sometimes there's the way like on Mac, particularly on Mac, it's very easy that you could open QuickTime and at least record your end, right? Like at least record your camera. So you could open QuickTime video recording and just have that running in the background as well as Zoom. And now at least you've got your own. And some of you would be using external cameras that you can probably record in as well. And so then you could just run that recording. So anyway, we've gotten off topic. Sorry, Kat, that wasn't your question. Your question is around how do I put
Really,
recording?
none of that was the question. Oh, geez.
Well, do you know, I said let's talk about this later because I was trying to
Ah,
keep to the question.
admittedly, yeah, you did
Yeah.
say stop talking blue. That is our code for each other. We'll talk about this later.
All right. Um, do you know, sometimes it's funny watching TVE and when people don't know that Blue and Barry are married. And I remember seeing it when people were like, there's just this. Someone actually wrote to me privately and said, there's sort of a weird sexual tension between these two. It's like, yeah,
It's an
it's not
awkward
weird.
amount of familiarity happening
Yeah,
on stage right now.
that's right. And they kissed. Anyway, my point was that sometimes
Yeah.
I feel
Nobody
like the
ever
way that
believes the homeless guy somehow managed to marry Barry. So, yeah.
sometimes I feel like Blue and I have this little married bickering thing going on between us when we're doing these calls. But we're not married. Thankfully, we've got some countries between us. So the
And
recordings,
an ocean.
back to the recordings. So remember that those recordings are not available forever. And really, it's best practice that once they're there for you to download them and to have your own copy of them because after about 60 days they will be gone. But it's best to just get them straight away. Now, Kat, you're asking about how do you then put them on your dashboard? There's a few different platforms. Really, you need a video hosting platform to be able to then embed them back on a dashboard. And it is a common thing with particularly events that may not be necessarily enrollment. And so there's more that Blue could talk about with not making recordings available straight away. I've run lots of events that are not enrollment based events on Obvio. And one of those things is being able to access the recordings after the event. And so we will download cloud recordings or take our local recording and post to. I've used Vimeo very successfully. Vimeo is not very expensive and has all the security to be able to lock it down that it's not available anywhere else. It's only available on this domain, and you can put in the domain name so that the embed only works there. And then you can control the player and the colors of the player and things like that. And you can make a blog post with the video in it. And in fact, you could even do playlists, if it was multiple sessions and you could make one playlist and embed just one video player with multiple videos in it. That way you trim them up and you can post them that way. You can also use things like Wistia is another one. And then Searchy, you could also do Searchy. And sometimes people are doing, particularly more with enrollment events, making Searchy areas with all of the videos included there. And you sort of can have people go off to them. But this is a point is to remember that um, the the recordings the dashboard is always available. The dashboard, once you set that up and you have attendees and you've given them access, their access token or their magic link, it's available for before the event starts, during the event, and after the event for as long as you're a paid subscriber to Obvio. You can 2 years later, people could go back to that event and see that to see those videos. So it is a place that you can continue to have people come back to if you wish. So yes, there's no way of just taking the the cloud recording and putting it on the dashboard and having it hosted by Zoom or things like that. That's not an option. So it has to be downloaded, uploaded to a video hosting service. You could even use YouTube. It depends on how sort of private the content is. You can have it unlisted and embed it, and but people could share a link to that and things. So it just depends how sensitive your content is. Okay, I think we've
Thank you,
answered that.
Grant. That was very comprehensive. I really appreciate that response.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It went further than it needed to. Well, that's all right.
No, I was exactly what I needed, a full-on review of what do I do with this stuff now that I have it?
Yeah, right. Cool. Henrik said, tried to duplicate an event, but when I tried to duplicate the broadcast, it kept giving me an error message. Yeah, okay. We had that. We've seen that yesterday too, and then like all annoying errors when they can be intermittent. And so when our developer looked at it, he's like, I got it to work fine. I copied broadcast, it was no problems. But I have seen it. So thank you for alerting us to it. We'll see if we can find exactly what's happening intermittently. Sorry about that. It's a new thing that's popped up for some reason.
Jason, did you have a follow-up question to what we were talking about earlier that you raised your digital hand for?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I really just came across by accident when I did the interview with Barry, and my personal Zoom account has long since run out of space on the cloud, so I recorded locally, and I didn't realize that when you record locally, when I looked at the recording afterwards, the first 5 minutes was fine because I had spotlighted me and Barry, and my view on my computer was just me and Barry, so it was perfect. But then when I changed my view to gallery, the recording changed to recording the gallery, whereas it doesn't do that with the cloud recordings. So you have to be really careful. If you're doing an interview with somebody, for example, it's not so much a problem with VLEs. Maybe it is. You just need to be really aware of it. And I was like, did I do something wrong? And I looked in the Zoom help docs, and it says, yeah, this is a quirk of local recordings that happens. At least that was my experience. You might have more insight into this because you much more than me.
You could say quirk or feature, as in the way that local recording works is anything you see on the screen is what is recorded. And so what that means is that you could have other computers join that meeting, and you could if you pinned someone on your local machine, then now you would have a full screen recording of that person for the entirety of that interview. And that can be very handy, right? Because you could have 3 or 4 computers if you wanted to, pin them all, do local recording, and now you've got individual recordings full screen of each person. Now you can edit that back. So, but yes, one of the things that actually it's the same with live streaming is that whatever the host's computer is seeing is what will be live streamed. And so I'm the host at the moment on this one because in saying this, I just remember that I hadn't set up this other one. What I normally do is I have another computer that I make the host, and then I set it to active speaker. And now the live stream is always active speaker, nice full screen. But what I prefer to see is gallery view when I'm doing this. And so and so that way I can separate them out. But it's a great point, Jason. Thank you for raising it. And that is when you're doing local recording in Zoom, it's going to record what you see, exactly what you see on that computer.
Yeah. So when I had to upload the replay, for people to go in, it took me just to edit it, so that, it was really, really low resolution because it was me and Barry up at the top left.
Right.
And I just because I didn't want everybody else in the recording.
Gotcha.
And of course, as people left and joined, the sizes changed. So I had to keep on every time it switched, I had to.
Right.
It's a complete nightmare. So you have to be
That
really,
sounds
really
fun. Yeah.
careful with that.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, using other computers is definitely a way around that. Cool. All right. Cat. In building a blog, I get an error message when I try to add an image, even when I drop the size below 1 meg. Invalid token. Did you do that just recently, Cat? Well, to Cat. Oh, hello, Cat. Okay. We had that too, Blue, right? I think it was the
Yeah, there was a
editor.
I think there was a really brief service interruption with the provider that we use for image uploads in blog posts, but it seems to have resolved itself at this point.
Yeah, I would try again, Cat. It's not the size that is the issue on that. Give that a try. Okay. Amy is asking, Blue, can you take a quick look at my newest dashboard? Might need some help. Yes.
Let's do it.
Would you like to share, Amy? Could run or have Blue do that? Where is Amy?
Blue can do it.
Okay. You can do it.
I have a tendency to make dashboards that are like every color in the rainbow, and they don't necessarily have eye appeal.
You think the more colors,
Well,
the better?
self-awareness is probably the first step towards solving the problem, so that's awesome. Good job, Amy. It's fantastic. All right,
I'll
Amy,
get.
what's the organization that we are working with?
It should be. Let me see.
You
Animal
have
chiropractic.
3: Animal Chiropractic, Dr. Amy Business Coaching, and EOS.
Yeah, it's Animal Chiropractic.
Okay. And
And
Intro to Animal Chiropractic or something else?
it's Intro to Animal Chiropractic. It's
Got it.
the new thing. We scrapped the other thing that you and I were talking about the other day.
Yep. Okay. Wow, I was
There's a
expecting to see
picture in
something
there.
way worse.
Yeah, me too.
Wow, that's a good
Yeah.
sign.
It's a good start.
Yeah. 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 So the only thing that I would probably do, the only significant change, why is there so much space there?
I don't know. And there's like, I can see an image behind the image. There's a dog, which I'm not sure where that came from.
It's in your image.
Oh,
It's in your background image. See the dog right there?
yeah, I see there's a dog. It's the mystery dog.
There's a dog in the stars. Yeah. So
Uh,
it's a happy dog with a straight back, most likely.
yeah, exactly. I'll have to go to Canva and
Okay.
remake that one.
Oh, but you have 3. Look at that. Did you have a preference as to which of these backgrounds you wanted to use?
I just like it when they switch in and out. And I had
Okay.
a couple others, but they made it so you couldn't read the words at all.
Yeah. Grant, what am I seeing? Why is there so much space there? What's going on?
Yeah, around the countdown.
No, I mean, yeah,
It's
but
before
like
that.
this gap right here, that should not be there.
Hmm.
That is really, really, really bizarre.
Yeah, is there some kind of
That's some of it.
Yeah. Huh.
That was changing it
Okay.
a bit. That was changing it.
Yeah, but that I think is this.
Mm,
So the height is
yeah, I see.
changing this here. It's not
Which is
actually changing the
yeah, the
um
padding around that.
yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your backgrounds first off. Amy,
Okay,
I
yeah,
really don't think this one works. The one that
yeah,
we're looking at right
I
now.
believe that. I can believe that
Um
because it's too many
so
words,
I would yeah,
words
well,
over
there shouldn't
words.
be. Here's the thing, guys. For the cards background, you're for the cards template, which is what this is using. The background image should not have anything in it that people are required to see in order for things to make sense. You shouldn't be putting any information back there. Okay.
Okay,
Think of it more, it's
I,
better for
yes,
colors, it's better for textures, it's better for imagery, it's better for something that is meant to just be something that your stuff sits over top of. So do you mind if for now I remove both of these images?
yeah, you can do that.
Okay. I actually think that
I,
this first one that you have is probably your best option of the things that I'm looking at anyway.
I can take the stars and the
Um
dog out of it later.
yeah, exactly. The things that I would probably do, I would change the welcome to your dashboard to be white instead of the color because I think it needs a little bit more contrast. The other thing that I would do is do you have a version of this welcome to animal chiropractic that is white?
I don't. I might be able to get one though.
Um, yeah, give me 1 second. Let me just try something. So at a glance, that is definitely those are kind of my initial
Mhm,
my initial comments on it.
mhm.
As I scroll down, I I don't like personally having a secondary logo down here. Um,
Okay,
eh, the logo's up here already. You don't really, nobody really needs to see your logo twice. If they're scrolling down, they're scrolling down because they're trying to get to the resources. So to put another logo in place, just to kind of like be, hey, I want to make sure that you see my logo. Like they see it every time they load the dashboard. It's not going to make a difference. So if it were me,
okay,
I would be removing this as well,
okay.
because I just don't think it's necessary. Those are the main things, and then just remember, for me, what I think is really really important when you're dealing with. Oh, I see what's going on. The image has a ton of space on it. Okay. When you're dealing with um, background colors, remember to pick a contrasting, like a solidly contrasting text color, right? So what I
Okay.
think is like if I were to add a blog post here, um, black is good, right? But you just mentioned you really like colors. So if I were to take my title color here and make it gray, now all of a sudden the gray is hard to see, right? So just
Mhm.
what you're looking for, or what I look for generally, and I am not a trained graphic designer. There are people who are way, 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 way better at this than I am. Um, but what I would say is I think it's really important to I think it's really important to let's see. I think it's really important
It's really
to
important because you said it 3 times.
yeah, no, it's really important to make sure that you have contrast, right? And I
Mhm,
think I think people make the mistake of not having contrast all
mhm.
too often. That's probably the biggest mistake that people that use a lot of color um, do in or have in my opinion. All right. And if you just give me a second, I'm almost done converting your image to a There's probably an easier way to do it, but I'm not that proficient in Photoshop. So I want to do a couple things. New, enter, paste, move the background. Copy merged. Okay. So that just at a glance, like I said, those are the big things. And then from a contrast perspective, that's why I think that that top logo, it would be best if it was
More white.
black and white or just white. So there. So I
Oh,
think
look
that
at
looks
this.
a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now I don't have to do it because blue did it for me.
Well, you're welcome. The other thing that I
I
would
want you to
probably
know.
do is I would make the icon color for your menu white as well. Again, if you're gonna leave the menu there, you might as well make it be visible.
Okay.
And then I'm just gonna disable this for a second. I'm curious if that's what's causing. No, what is causing that huge space?
I think it's that giant button at the bottom. I couldn't figure out how to make the big orange button smaller, a different size, someplace
Yeah,
else.
I have a sneaking suspicion that that a bug has crept in somewhere. I'm not sure what is causing. I'm going to pass this on to the dev team actually because this gap, well, I don't think it should be that big.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't think so anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Not quite right.
But does
So I was,
that help?
yes. Yeah, and the problem I was having with that big button was I wanted the big button to be the main stage and the ticket button to be a different one. But I was uncertain how to move it
Okay,
around.
so
It wouldn't
you
move
want
for me.
do you want all of these other buttons on the second row, but the main stage on the first?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
That
so
to me
if you
makes
go,
more
so you,
sense.
yeah, so
Oh,
if you
looky
go
there.
in to each of your individual buttons, there is a row 1 or row 2. You can't actually drag them from you can't drag them between rows,
I
but
was
you
trying to do that.
can.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. And then
Okay.
when you preview it, there you have it.
They recreate themselves. Nice.
Yeah.
Just how I would have done it if I could have done it that way.
Perfect. Here, let
I
me
might,
remove that blog post.
I probably need to change that one green button to a different color. The clinking glasses.
Yeah, when you go to use it, that's going to be like when you actually turn it on, that is definitely going to be a little hard to watch.
Weird.
It wouldn't be so bad if it was in the middle or just off, but even still,
I can pick a different color.
that would be better. The other thing you could potentially do is you could add a border color to it, like even just a white border.
Or a black border.
Yeah, right. Black border, again, I don't think works, but like that makes it a little bit more visible. And if I was going to do that, then I would probably make this one have the same thing. Like that. But I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the green on green. I think you're better off actually trying to remove, trying to change the color of that one button so it's not green.
Yeah, I can do that. And then there is, Dorita just pointed out, no, it's gone. There is some blue writing between the logo and the welcome to your dashboard.
Yeah, that's just a button. I
thought it was
the
just a
blue
button.
writing between. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
just the
the
button.
edit your welcome text button. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you click on it, it disappears.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, you're welcome.
Good work. So Miriam's asking about when an email is sent out with Obvio for the link to the event, it can't be forwarded, right? How is that done? I was thinking about this for recordings. So Miriam, yes, I mean it can be forwarded. It's just a normal email that could be forwarded to a bunch of their friends. The difference is that when people click on that, the different people click on that, they would all log in as that same person to the dashboard. But likely the setting for not allowing multiple devices to join Zoom is default turned on, and so then only one person can join Zoom, not the 10 people that are forwarded to. Is that what you're thinking about uh, as far as security for an event,
Yeah.
or you're thinking post event?
Well, I'm thinking of both, and I'm
Okay.
not, I mean, I'm very unfamiliar with Zoom, with all of it. And then also, of course, with Obvio. But part of what I've seen with Obvio is that there's all these wonderful things built into it. So through Obvio, is what would I have to do to, I mean, is there anything that I have to do through the Obvio portal to make
Mhm.
sure that not more than one person can sign in through that? Do you know what I mean, it's hard for
Yes.
me to even ask the question because I'm so
No, that's
unfamiliar. No?
yeah. It's totally fine, and a big thing with learning about these things is often what are the right questions to ask, right? And
Mhm.
you learn better how to ask the questions. So the thing to think about from a security point of view,
Mhm.
we have intentionally not locked down dashboard access to individual devices. There's so many people that want to switch devices, or they're going from I was logged in here and I want to log in here, and when you lock that down, it just becomes such a hassle, where people can't just switch a device. However, what we do lock down or give the option to lock down is to say that only one person can be logged in from that dashboard, from that individual's dashboard, that attendee's dashboard. Only one person can be logged into the Zoom meeting. You can't have multiples. Now, I'll show you quickly what that looks like. When you're creating a Zoom area, that's where the
Mhm.
setting that's where the setting is for that. Give me a second here. So we're looking at Zoom areas, and if we were creating a new area, so I've been wanting to change this wording for 3 years and just keep forgetting, because it's a question rather than a statement that you are saying is true or false or enabled or disabled. Um, so, but you can sort of work it out. It defaults to being off. Can the user use multiple devices to join at the same
I
time?
can,
You appreciate that's not great grammar. And the checkbox doesn't really say yes or no. Anyway, with it off like that,
Okay.
it means that only that one attendee can only join once. What will happen is if they shared it with their friends, they would go to the dashboard, they'd go to click on the Zoom join button, and it would say you are already joined. There's an error message that Zoom will give that says you're already a part of the meeting. You can't join again. The reason we have that there is there's occasionally there are reasons where you might want to allow it for something like help desk, right? Where sometimes you want to help someone where they're using different devices, and you just want to make it easier and not have any error messages, and they're trying to switch devices. And we've also had it where it's like, I can see on this device but I can't hear, and I can hear on this device but I can't see, and so we can get them to join the help desk, from both devices, and now they're good. And so that's the reason that we have the option there. um the the so then the second part that you're sort of thinking about access to the dashboard and recordings is
Mhm.
a valid concern, in that it does mean that anyone could share their dashboard link and say, go and access this, and you can access all the recordings for free, and they can send them around. And so that's the trade-off that we have as far as not locking down the dashboard to one person being logged in. But do you know what? At any point, you can no matter how much security we add, all of that can be provided to someone else anyway, right? Like, it's, unless we're doing a
Mhm.
retinal scan of the person to give them access to the recordings,
So, so
it's going to be share passwords and
just,
whatever. Yep.
so just so that I understand that this part. So, you talked about the videos being like the recordings being created, and then they can actually stay as part of that event on the Obvio platform
Yes.
after. And so, as long as we're paying for the Obvio site or part of Leap.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole security aspect of it is, well, you give it to someone and hope that they don't share it with 25,000 people.
It's probably a good problem to have, having 25,000 people see your content. But um, but but yes, so um,
But it could
that's
only be
really,
one at a time, really, because even when you're doing, even after the event is done, and you send the email out to say, okay, here's the recording,
Mhm.
that event itself in the email still is requiring that it's only one person signed in at a time, correct?
Not to the
Or am I?
dashboard, not
Oh,
to the
okay.
dashboard, only in Zoom. So only in Zoom. Oh,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
um, sorry. Yes, yeah, only in Zoom. It's the dashboard. Yeah, I can give you an example of what we were talking about as far as access to. Um,
I mean, I asked this question because I've had, some of my work get put onto some of those sites
yeah,
for people to download for free and
yeah, that's
that
not
kind of,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, and it depends how people do that. And there is security of content is always challenging, and that no matter how much, as I'm saying, we could add um, we could add all sorts of hoops to jump through for security. And in the end, anything that we share can be shared with someone else. Even if it was time limited, it's still going to require that, that could still be sent off to someone else and they could get access. So generally what we're trying to do is trade off, with all security, is a trade-off of convenience. And we want to make it more convenient for people while still maintaining some level of security. But if you're really concerned about that for recordings, then the dashboard possibly is not the place for you to store those recordings, right? And you might find a more secure place like Searchy or something like that. I don't know for sure around the security protocols, but probably what you're looking at is something where it's sending an email to get them access again, and that kind of regularly happening or something. If that was a big concern, then yeah, I would look at something else. But just as an example, as well, I was talking before, this is an older event that I did, and we had lots of workshops over the course of this event. And so this is Vimeo. Kat, you can see these. This is Vimeo with multiple videos, like playlists. So it's different sessions for each day. And so these were the different recordings, and there was all these different workshops. What's really cool too is that you can give access specifically to only some videos, for people that had signed up to a particular workshop, and they only get access to those recordings on the on the visibility rules for that blog post, you could say only the people that are tagged with this, and that's what we did with lots of that. So they could just see only the workshops that they had signed up for. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. But the security thing is something to be aware of. So cool. Let me get back. All right. Henrik saying would love some helpful hints. You can have hints, but they may or may not be helpful. We'll see how we go. Is he still here? Oh, there he is. Yes, sorry. Setting up new studio powered by Obvio at home in terms of Zoom gallery. Yeah, I think I saw a couple of questions on it, and sorry I didn't get back to replying to that. You're thinking particularly about kind of seeing as many people as you can in your home setup. I think you're muted there, or is that just me?
No, I forgot to put the on button on the ATEM. Sorry. Apologies. Is that too loud? I can make that softer.
Too loud, too loud.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm basically setting up a simple home studio, and I want to do it in such a way that I can see the Zoom galleries up there, and it's kind of obviously quite challenging because from what I gather, you've got to do a separate computer to show each gallery. But then as you go through your, day one, day two, you're back into breakouts, all this kind of stuff. Do you basically have to have a guy like Chuck standing in the background to refresh those screens and put the proper galleries back in place, or what is the best protocol? And any hints that you guys have, right down to, hey Blue, how come every studio is black on the inside? Would be handy. I'm open for any advice you have.
Yeah, so so I would say that the thing you were saying with breakout rooms that change, and so that then they might go into breakout rooms and then they come back, and now you need to reconfigure to get them all back again. Firstly, on that, I would manage it so that you're not ever putting that extra computer into breakout rooms, so that it never changes, right? So that it's always on a gallery view.
So how do you do that? How do you prevent computers from going into breakout rooms?
One easy way is to ensure that computer is a co-host, and then when you're assigning the breakout rooms, you can uncheck, or I can't remember if it's positive or negative, but either way, it's saying don't send co-hosts into breakout rooms. So that's a really easy way of doing that.
And you just basically create them as users in Obvio, right? And then make them part of the team.
Well, that either way, I mean, they can be an attendee, as simple as just a standard attendee, and you get them to come in, and then you co-host them. You could log into Obvio and just keep clicking, like on those multiple computers, you can log in as the same person into Obvio and then just hit start, and it's going to bring them in multiple times. So you can do that. They don't necessarily have to be all separate, particularly when it's you. When you're the same person and you're logging in multiple computers, you know what you're doing. Where it's particularly helpful to separate out team is when you have people in different locations, so that when they join, you know who they are. It's like, here comes Grant, here comes Blue, and so you can see when they're coming in through the team access. I would suggest, I guess I'm apprehensively suggesting it, but you can also use Zoom Rooms as in the conference room system. Now this is an extra cost. I think it might be $50 a month or something. You can have a look at that. What that is it's the Zoom equivalent of like a Cisco system.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Right? Yep. So what the advantage is of this is that you can have up to 3 monitors connected to that one computer, and those 3 screens can have gallery view on them, all at 7x7 grids, 49, whatever that is, 156 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you can now have that with those 3 monitors. You're only connecting once, and now you're seeing 3 by 47, 49. So that can be a really nice experience too, because you can control that from an iPad, and you can say, actually pin this person now because I'm talking to them, and you can say, I want to pin them on the second screen, or I want to pin them on the third screen, or I'm screen sharing. I want to show my screen share on screen number 1, and you could just kind of set up these multiple that can be a really powerful way of doing it. You can achieve somewhat of the similar thing by having 3 separate computers, running those 3 screens, and having a gallery view, and then changing the pages, and putting them on 3 separate pages.
That was Muddy's suggestion. I had a really good call with him the other day, and he suggested that might be the easiest way. And I went to Facebook Marketplace and bought a couple of old Mac, iMacs and things like that, just to run that basically.
Great. Yeah, and that should work quite well. But yeah, I encourage you to keep working on it to get it to a good place, because this is something that I have not heard anyone else talk about other than Blue. And Blue spoke about this right from March 2020. He said, everyone's worried about, what the attendees see. One key thing that I'm thinking about is what the host sees.
Yeah.
And it was trying to make that host experience as best as possible. And that was the drawing on a napkin and going, what about 6 screens that they can see lots of faces?
Yeah.
And that is really unique and key to a really successful event, because you perform differently, you engage differently, the more faces that you can see. And because not everyone engages the same, right? Like, even as we're talking now, Blue is not even listening, and everyone
He's in a bad mood. I think we've got to watch that, man.
He is listening. He gave me the eye. But there's people that are nodding. There's people that are laughing when I make stupid jokes, and that only encourages me more. So just use that carefully. But honestly, it makes a difference. It makes a difference for me. And one of those things I said right at the start is, I asked if Blue was standing, and I'm standing, and I have found that I prefer to do these calls standing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than I do seated, and so I just have more.
And also,
more energy.
When you're doing the 3-day event, I found I can do the 3-day event fine standing up, but sitting down I can't even do 1 day.
Right.
It really does change. It changes your voice, changes the energy in the room. The only problem is I'm moving around too much, so I got to figure out the camera too.
Yeah, exactly, and that is the challenge. But that's another way of distinguishing it as a separate, as not another Zoom meeting. Where you're hunched over your laptop, and now you're going to try to teach people for 3 days. Like it's a different event.
It was interesting today for those new Obvio users. I actually attended a Zoom hosted webinar today, and it was awful. It felt like we're going back to the 80s. It was so one-sided, and the host tried everything he could to get the engagement up, and I'm like, this idiot needs Obvio. Anyway, so I'm going to send him your way. He's going to sign up, Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of those that and you know what? People just haven't necessarily experienced something different, or they don't think they're thinking about webinars. And it's not a webinar.
Yeah. No, it's very, 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 very different. And Blue, if you're unmuted, how come all the studios are black on the inside? Why is that? Because I'm thinking of a color scheme to put in there. Why is everything black?
I don't know. I just copied what everybody else does.
That's not your style.
I think
come up
it's
with-
because black tends to absorb light and not reflect light.
Yep.
Cool.
And
Well, I
other
think
people smarter than me are nodding their heads and saying, yes, that's the reason.
black. Okay.
So
I actually understand, from what I understand, the absolute best color for a studio, there's actually a gray that's
Right,
actually
yeah.
better than black. But I just
Yeah.
don't know what the exact gray is.
It's like 18% or something. I can get you a color. The reason for that, a gray background, gray walls, is that it's not really bright, so it's not highly reflective, particularly if you get more of a satin and not a sheen paint. It also is, you can also throw color on it really easily. So you can put light on it, and it will show that really nicely, and not be too bright. So that works really well. You may not find the key thing with the black is that it's controlling light. And so what it means is you're starting from as neutral as possible and then bringing in all your light. And so in blue studios, they go black and then they bring in all the light, and now it's much more controlled. And so it's not like random things bouncing off of walls, or where's this shadow coming from? Oh, it's bouncing off that white wall over there. So you go black, and now it doesn't reflect that. But in a studio like yours, perhaps, doing gray and having options to be able to put color like you've got with those purple lights, that sort of thing.
I'm thinking of doing this as a background, but my wife is not keen on this at all. Like an actual bourbon bar in the back of the studio, and then maybe Blue will come and visit me. But
I mean, yes, I say yes to that. I'll tell you the only if I okay, and then we should probably move on to the next question. But one of the challenges with something like that, you're going to want a little bit of distance from that background, because the glass is going to reflect the glass from the bottles, right? And anything that reflects, unless it's on purpose and like there's an artistic reason for it to reflect, does not usually end in a good result.
Yeah, my wife wants to put a big, like 85-inch TV behind us so we can use it for mood setting or something. And even Muddy said to me the other day, that's going to reflect like crazy, even when you angle it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to distance. You can get matte coatings for TVs, but like it. That doesn't really.
Doesn't work.
It's hard.
Yeah. LED video.
I'm with Robbie. Get an LED video wall. That's 100% the answer.
Yeah, I think the bourbon bar would be cheaper at this rate.
It depends on what bottles we put on it, but yeah.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Last question. Those rails, those sliders that move the camera from position A, position B, position C, that automate and keep, are those things worth looking at? Because they're not that expensive. Obviously, yours is very expensive, but you can get fairly straightforward ones.
Yeah, I would say no.
No, just keep the camera straight up.
Keep the camera. If you really want to do something fancy, get a dolly. Like put your tripods on wheels so that you can move them. Because I will tell you, the amount of times that we move our tripods, like our cameras, live, is next to never. And that like 99.999% of the time, when we do a move to our camera, to one of our cameras, it's when the camera is not live. So, we take a different camera, we move the other camera, then we go back to camera one, right? And then we move camera two, and then we go back to camera two. But we're rarely doing live shots. We probably could, but it tends to not be fantastic. I would just say it's easier just to,
Or just have two cameras and switch back and forth.
Robbie's not wrong. It's cheaper sometimes just to get another camera than it is to get, a whole moving system. Yep.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Sorry, I didn't want to monopolize the questions here. Appreciate it.
It's good. It's all part of making your events better, or how we use Obvio to make them better. So it's cool. Esther is asking, what do you do if you don't know how to edit the recording and it's too big to send by Dropbox? Is Esther still here? So the thing with too big to send by Dropbox, I guess that means that you're using maybe a free Dropbox account. So the downloading your recording, cloud recording, you can totally download no matter how big it is. It just is how fast your internet is, but it'll eventually download. You can then upload that to something like Vimeo, and you can actually do the editing within Vimeo if you want to. You can trim it. But if you're, I mean, Windows and Mac both have basic video editing software to be able to trim the videos, and so Mac has iMovie, and PC has like Clip or something. There's a newer one I saw recently, a Windows. There's some more not necessarily expensive, but more complicated ones of using. But basic video editing, can be done with what's it called? Clipchamp. I think Clipchamp is another one that you can use on Windows to be able to edit the videos. So you have a play with that, but just a matter of downloading, editing, and then uploading to a video hosting platform. So there's a few options there. Okay, Kat, is there a file? Is there a size limit to photos for the image waterfall? Blue, is that the same?
5 megabytes.
5. There you go. And sometimes they can be more than that on a phone. So it's something to watch. Martin is saying about using JavaScript. Can you upload and use JavaScript for customizing in the custom HTML and use it somewhere in Obvio? Yeah, you totally can. You do that at your own risk, because you can really break your dashboard. But yes, that's the reason that the custom HTML is at the bottom of the page. So Martin, you would know that in the blog post, you could put some divs, some particular HTML elements, and then you could reference those elements in the custom HTML section down the bottom. You have also got scripts that can be ran on other pages other than the dashboard as well. So if you look at scripts, you can see that you can run other things on the login page and the sign up page and the speakers page and things like that. So yes, you actually have a lot of power to create problems for yourself. So you just tread carefully, and it can be really powerful. So play around. The main reason for that, just so we know, is being able to embed something like a live chat little bot system or things like that. That will need a script. And so often we're putting in an element into a blog post or something that we want it to show up in, or an embed, and then we're putting JavaScript in the custom HTML section at the bottom. So there's lots of reasons why we like to use that. Last question at the moment. Robbie, some nerdy advice, would like to use Obvio to premiere a movie documentary at our upcoming virtual event. The producers gave me the 1080 HD file. I'm considering using a Raspberry Pi with Playout B with A10 Mini Extreme. Event setup, considerations, thoughts. That could totally work. I guess I would, as something kind of mission critical like that, I would think about using not a Raspberry Pi, even though it is capable of doing all of that, but just using a computer that's a bit more powerful, so that it works great and Jonas, who built it, is a genius. Um, and so it would be fine. But if you have a spare computer, like it seems to me like where Playout B is really particularly helpful is when you've got a lot of inputs and needs, and you want to have a looping video. It's perfect for that, or a motion background, or something. But if you're literally just playing one video out, you've probably got better hardware to run that back into the A10 Mini and push it back in. You could also just experiment with using Zoom and natively sharing the video as a screen share. It just depends on what you're doing before and after and all of that, and how you want that experience to be. But you could experiment with that because that could be a good way to do it. Is that will actually force everyone into a larger screen because it's kind of like screen sharing, but it's using video. Um, but yeah, the ATEM is a great approach. I would choose a different device because it's not just background, it's direct. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robbie.
No, I was just saying thank you.
I'll say if it was me, and like a movie premiere sounds like something important and sounds like something that you don't want failure. And if we were going to do something like that in this studio, I'd probably have 2 computers running QLab, both plugged into my ATEM, and I would trigger both of them to play simultaneously using Companion, and take one of them to program. And if at some point that computer starts glitching out because, videos sometimes do weird things, computers sometimes do weird things, you can then cut to the secondary computer that's already playing the video and is at essentially the exact same spot with exceptionally low disturbance to the viewer. So if it were me, that's what I would be doing.
I was actually considering 2 computers just in case, and more for if the ATEM fails, because for some reason my ATEM has, on like a couple occasions, I've had to just during a 3-day event pull the power, plug it back in because it lost video. So I was considering using like a Elgato capture card on the second PC if I could just fail over on Zoom to
And
select a
change your
different
camera source. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. That would you essentially accomplish the same end result. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, just
Thanks.
think about if you're gonna do that. I used to actually get that with my A10 Mini Pro. I have not had that experience recently.
Is that because you have a Constellation now?
No, I've got on my desk, I've got the A10 Mini Pro. Like I don't have a
Okay.
Constellation sitting on my desk. So it's possible. Have you updated it to the latest firmware?
Not in the last year. No.
I would do that.
Okay.
Like
That could be.
in all likelihood, I would do that.
Okay. Cool.
And I would sooner have 2 computers plugged into my ATEM than a computer plugged into the ATEM and one plugged into an Elgato Cam Link, because the switch to the Cam Link, you have to switch video and then you have to switch audio. So you're talking about like at best 10 to 15 seconds of darkness.
Okay.
And people complaining as to what's going on. Whereas, just cut. I mean, that I cut to a blank source, so that was dumb, but it's just a simple cut.
It's amazing.
And on
you can cut to black anytime. Really fast.
Exactly. Look how amazing that is. What crazy.
Yeah.
But also, especially if you're, running audio through the ATEM as well. Not 100% sure that I would do that. Again, if it's important, I'd be running audio through a mixer.
Yeah, I've been running audio through the mixer, and that actually saved us because the ATEM failed. I continued to.
But you still
talk.
hear.
we could still hear, and it just took a minute to reboot the ATEM, and video came back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So again, that I'd probably keep doing the same thing. And if the ATEM fails, again, the video's going to keep playing. They're going to hear it, but that gives
yeah,
you a couple different
thank you.
failure points. And I think a better experience if it does fail than the weirdness of things stopping and chopping and going to having to switch your microphone and then having to switch your video source.
Do you have a roadmap for marketplace coming back if I wanted to do ticket sales through Obvio? Because right now I would just use a separate cart.
That's a great question. We are still working on it. And our team has to get back into QC mode. We made a major change in how the pages were rendering. Not that that means anything, but one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did when we released the marketplace platform is ensure that the pages operated pretty fast. Not super fast because there's only so much we can do with a page builder. In fact, there's pretty much only so much any page builder can do. But we wanted to get the pages to load as quickly as possible because if people drive traffic to these pages through Facebook, through Google, through paid means, if the page doesn't load quickly, results are going to be crappy, right? It's fine if you send your own audience to it. So we went through we just spent the last month, actually it took a little longer than we were anticipating, but we just spent the last month making a major change to how the pages are displayed to the user to significantly speed up the speed of page delivery. And that's done. And now, like, it got done. I think I just got the notice that it was ready for testing like 2 days ago. And we have to now get back into building mode and QC mode. So I'm hopeful that it'll be within the next couple weeks. But every time I say that, 2 weeks usually becomes 4.
Okay.
So my goal is still March. How about that?
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. The sooner the better. I mean, it's not something we've been working on this for a long time. It's something that, we really want to get it into your hands. Like really want to get in, not just your hands, but everybody's hands.
Cool. That was the last question there. Hey, Nathan, what's up?
Hiya. Yeah, just a quickie. Just have a reminder of how many rooms you can actually run from one dashboard.
From one dashboard, from one account. Is this an account
From one
question,
dashboard.
Nathan?
There's a particular event that might be kind of we're working on, and they run 5 stages from this one particular event. But the way they get their attendees in and the whole way it's controlled is frankly awful. And I've attended this conference myself 3 times, and it's just confusing, and you never know where you're going. The links are just there. So, as a potential, I could hopefully work on in the future, but I'm trying to kind of pitch it out to them how it could be improved. But
So I would say to you, how many people did this event have in attendance approximately over the course of over their 5 stages?
This January they had 3,500. It's growing every year. They had to start going virtual in 21, like the first year of the pandemic, basically, because their event's in January, so 2020 event already been. But it's growing every year, so it could be 5,000, 6,000. It's the biggest agroecology event in the world, conference in the world. It's a big event.
Yep.
So
yeah, I would say to you that there isn't a limitation that we've found yet. I'm sure there is one. But we've had as many as I think the most amount of rooms that we've had attached to an event is somewhere in the area of 90, 95 rooms, something like that. So
right, so that's to one stage though, yeah, 95 rooms to one stage.
No, that was spread out over a couple different stages. I mean,
Right,
there
so
were
again,
75 in one of the stages, and then there were a few rooms in some of the different stages.
So, for instance, they could live stream out to kind of essentially 5 different stages and have attendees choose which stage they want to go to through the dashboard.
Yep.
and Obvio would just automatically just adjust in the background to accommodate the rooms.
Yeah, basically what happens, Nathan, is when you go into Obvio, okay, yeah. When you go into Obvio and you go to Zoom areas, all you would simply do is you would create multiple areas inside of Zoom areas. So you'd create like stage 1,
Rooms.
stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5.
Yeah.
And then you would go to your dashboard and you'd create 5 different buttons. And each button you would point to one of those areas that you created. And then if you think one of them is going to be like the main stage, and then the other ones are going to be like your concurrent sessions or your breakouts, right? So sometimes in an event like this, you have, there's a time where everybody is in the same space, in the same place. And then after that, they get broken out into subsections. So you could have like 5 rooms in your main stage area, and then you could have 1 room in each of your breakout areas, if you would, which is totally doable. You just have to, the bigger issue is going to be Zoom computers, right? And making sure that you have a computer and a source for each of those rooms. But yeah,
they've got a really good AV company they already work with. It's in the Oxford Town Hall in England, obviously, and it's
cool.
So yeah, I mean, this started as an in-person conference 15 years ago, and just in 2021, obviously they went virtual because they couldn't do it in person, and it's just so they started to develop it. It just needs to be more immersive. So I was just to have screens up in the stages as well with Zoom to the galleries on. So again, like you say, so you as the speaker can get that interaction again with the virtual audience. It's too separate, That's the trouble at the moment. It doesn't feel like it's all inclusive. And obviously, what I heard you talk about, obviously, when I was in Leap and everything about, sort of trying to do virtual and in person at the same time. I'm trying to kind of present it the way they can steer it a little bit differently. So,
yeah, yep. I mean, from an Obvio perspective, you're not even scratching the surface of limitations on the platform.
Good. Brilliant. That's good to know. I just had to refresh my mind on that. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to hear it again to make sure I was in the right thinking before I start opening my mouth, as it were.
Yeah, no worries.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, just keep in mind. I mean, we've done events inside of Zoom, over 20,000 people, many, 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 many times.
Mm.
So, I think the single biggest live concurrent in Zoom that we've had is like 55,000, somewhere in that area. And while that event was happening, we had another event taking place that had 7,000 people in it. And then we had another event that was taking place that had about 1,500 people in it. So, and then there were like 3 or 4 other events that were smaller events. So, the platform was really happy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
No worries.
You are welcome.
So there's no other questions that have been posted. And I need to go now, Blue. Got my family visiting from America. So we're off to go cuddle some koalas, as you do.
Is that something that you do on the regular, Grant, or is that just something you do with tourists?
It's a Thursday. Yeah, just a regular Thursday for me. Yeah.
And then tomorrow you'll be boxing with kangaroos.
Well, I mean, I ride a kangaroo to the shops, and so that's that's
Excellent.
just normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm going back to Canada shortly, and I'll be visiting my igloo. So, we all have our thing.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right. Any other questions that we can help you guys with?
Can I just unmute?
Yeah.
Hi, Blue.
Hey, how's it going? Lisa,
it's going
how are you?
Nice to see you.
Yeah. You too. What's going on?
So I did post it in here and I got a couple of answers, but I'd really like to know from you. So as you know, we are brand new. We're just getting dialed into all of the tools and resources. This is my first day. I normally can't even make this call because it's my coaching call with my clients, but I was able to hop on. So I would like to know your recommendation. I'm quite literate with technology. Where is the best starting place to dial in and learn the platform? And apologize if that's
Yeah.
just.
No worries. Okay, so given that there's no, does anybody else have any questions, or
Oh,
because if there are no other questions, what I'm gonna give you a resource that you can, kind of self learn at.
perfect.
There's a searchy hub that has way too many hours of content on it. That is a good like introduction, like a really solid. If you go through the entire thing, it's what I'm gonna say is it's 8 sessions that are 2 hours each, which sounds scary, but there's probably about an hour of Q&A in each one of them that you can just kind of fast forward through. So it's probably actually half that. But I'm going to answer Kevin's question, and because I see his hand raised, and then what I'll do, because I see there's a few people who are new on the platform, I'll just take a couple of minutes and just give an overview of some good places to start, which could help you as well, Lisa. Kevin, what's up? What's your question?
All right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you for taking my question. I'm sorry it was last minute, but I was just looking through on. Okay, just a couple of questions. Hopefully they'll be quick. The first one is I want to try out Avio. I've been following for a while, and I had my fear of flying, so now I'm trying to spread my wings and actually do something with it. Um, my wife is having an event. She's having an event where she having a bunch of people come in and they're having a conversation. She's already created her Zoom event. She already created the Zoom account or whatever, everything for it. How would can I use Avio to have everybody else to come Avio just to test it out? And does
And
she has
then
to,
use and is she using Zoom events, or is she using a Zoom meeting that she has
she's just
created a
using
meeting on?
just Zoom meeting?
Okay. So what you could do is you can create a dashboard inside of Obvio,
Hmm.
and on the dashboard, rather than use the built-in Zoom functionality that Obvio has, you can just create a button on the dashboard that links to an external link, and that external link would be your Zoom link. And that way you would get the experience of building the dashboard and having them have that experience. What's different about using Obvio in that way versus using the built-in Zoom functionality is when you use the built-in Zoom functionality, your attendees are named with their correct attendee name inside of Zoom. That's number one. That's not a huge issue, but it does avoid things like John's iPad or mom's iPhone or stuff like that showing up in Zoom, right?
Right.
The other thing that it does is your Zoom meetings aren't going to be secure, whereas the Zoom meetings that you use inside of Obvio will be. Now that may not matter to you for for the event that you're doing, but there it is. And then of course you have unlimited HT cloud recordings in our Zoom instances, and you have up to 500 attendees. You can actually put up to 1,000 attendees in all of these meetings, but your account is limits that to up to 500. Your Obvio account. You can purchase additional if you needed to, but my guess is for this you don't need to. So those are kind of
Right.
like the advantages, disadvantages. And here's the other thing that I would say, Kevin, if you're going to create a dashboard and have them join the event, your Zoom meeting through the dashboard, just use the built-in Obvio link. They don't need, it doesn't matter that you already created a meeting. Just don't use it. Because if you're going to get
Right.
them into a dashboard and they're going to click a button, they don't know the difference as to whether or not they're clicking the button that goes to your wife's Zoom account or clicks a button that goes into the Obvio Zoom system, like, because they're not really using they're not really using that button. They're just, like, they're not really using the link. They're just using the button. So I'm not sure it matters.
Yeah, so that was
Does that
going to
make
be the thing.
sense?
I was going to, yeah, it makes sense. So that's what I was going to see. I was going to see if I can actually have her to change it and then just use Avio to do that. And
Yeah. Is it a free
what would
event?
be the drawbacks? It's in a free. That's the other thing. It's a free event. There's nothing. They don't have to sign any
Okay.
waivers or
And have
anything
they
else.
and they've already received the links?
I think she just sent them out a notice that it was going to be. I'm not sure she sent the link yet.
Okay, so for a free event, I'm gonna change my Obvio hat and just kind of put on my strategy hat for a half second. If you've
Okay.
already sent out links, don't change the platform.
Okay.
Just stick with what you've got, right? Especially for a free event, because for a free event, if all of a sudden you send them another link and they say, oh, look, there's an email from, but I'm already registered for that. And I already have the link on my calendar. And some people have put it on their calendar, some people haven't. You're just going to create a cluster. And for a free event, there's like no skin in the game. They're not going to work that hard to try. Like, you're not going to get a whole bunch of people reaching out to you going, I can't get into the event I paid for. They're just not going to show up.
Right.
So for a free event, I would be hesitant to make a change like that.
And if
if
I
I was you.
if I just did it with the link to her event that she already created, then there's no
Then
way for them to go in to see like panelist information or whoever else is going to be there inside Avio.
no.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. And I will tell you, like, we've done this. Like, I have sent out a Zoom link and then, after the fact, thought to myself, I should really be using Obvio. And I don't change it, because once you start sending out the links, getting everybody to change like, have you ever, think about this? Have you ever had a work meeting that had 15 people on it?
Yeah.
And you
Been
sent
there,
everybody
done
the
that.
link, and at the last minute, the Zoom link had to change and half of them went to the wrong link?
Yes.
Right? Like, that's essentially what you're creating, except the people that are coming to the event have very, very limited skin in the game. Like, at least with a work meeting, people are supposed to be there. Right? So
Understood.
that's basically what you're creating, and that's a challenge. I would not I would not walk into that willingly.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's do just a really quick overview of Obvio as a platform. Okay, when you first log into the platform, you're going to land on a page that says organizations up at the top. Now, you're going to have a lot less organizations than I do. My account is, we use our account every single day for every single one of our clients and their events. And then, of course, I also have access, because of the type of account that I personally have, to a lot of our users' accounts as well. So in your case, you are probably just going to see a single organization. That organization is going to probably have your name. So Lisa, in your case, it would probably say Lisa Crisali's organization, something along those lines. And I'm going to just scroll down to the organization. Actually, you know what? I'm going to create a new organization for this one. Blue Melnick's organization. Okay, so it's going to look something like, you can do it. Blue Melnick, something like this right here, like this icon that we're looking at right here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click. Apparently I've done this test before. You go ahead and you click on it. That's going to take you into, that's the wrong one. So it's going to take you into an organization that probably doesn't have any events in it. Okay. Now, if I was you, the first thing that I would be doing is I would be changing my organization to my company name if you have one. And how you do that is you click on the organization menu on the right-hand side and you go down to settings. And a quick change right here, change this to Blues Test Org on March 6th. Okay. But in your case, for this example, you would probably change that to be your company name. You can upload a logo, but it doesn't really do anything outside of looking pretty on the organization's page. It replaces the Obvio logo with your company logo. So if you'd like a little bit, like if you are vain and you like to see your logo, then do that. Incidentally, I say that, and you may think, well, Blue, I don't want to pretend like I'm vain. If I go down to the Sage Event Management organization, you'll notice that I have done that for us. Okay, so for me, I happen to use that because I have quite a few organizations and I can visually see the Sage logo. So that's personally why I like it. Now, from there, inside your organization, you can create events. Now, if you have a Leap account or if you have an Obvio Pro account, they are essentially the same thing. An Obvio Pro account can have up to 3 organizations inside of your account. Now, think of organizations as companies. Obvio was originally designed for Sage, and it was designed because there are multiple organizations that we wanted to keep separate because we wanted to have our client events inside their own container and give access to our clients to their own platform, to their own events, but we didn't want them to see everybody else, right? So in our case, we create an organization for every single client event that we have. If you're a third party like Dorita, and you are actually producing events for other people, you may want to consider Obvio Enterprise because Obvio Enterprise allows you to have unlimited organizations, and it's designed for people who are essentially not necessarily reselling Obvio, but using Obvio for their clients. Okay, so inside of organizations, you can have team members, and you can have events. There's also add-ons and settings. We're not going to talk about that on this, but if you plan on giving different team members access to your organization, you may want to go first before you do anything, pop into team, go over to roles, and create a couple of roles. So roles that I usually have are admin, and then oftentimes I'll have like a Zoom tech role. And then sometimes I'll do something else. But for now, we're just going to create those 2 roles. Now, once you do that, you're going to see that each role can have a whole bunch of different things that they can do. Create events, event settings, event design, all of these different things. Now, in the video that you can go and watch, I went into detail as to what each of these are. But essentially, what we do for our admin roles is we basically give them access to everything. Okay. The only thing that sometimes we don't give them access to is the ability to purchase add-ons, because I want to be the person to actually make purchases, and I don't trust my team to spend my money. But if you trust your team to spend your money, then click purchase add-ons there. Now, from a Zoom tech perspective, we allow them to start areas, start rooms, view Zoom attendance, and update attendees. And then sometimes we also add event statistics to this. Now, that's just me. You can play around with this and see what mix works best for you. There's no limit to how many roles you can have inside your organization, and they can all be different. They can all have any combination of check marks that you want. Now, once you've created your roles, you want to go back to team members and invite some of those team members. So if I want to invite an admin, I could go blue@bluemelnick.com and click invite. If I wanted to add a tech, right? So Zoom tech, I'd go bmelnick@gmail.com. These are other people who will potentially have access to your Obvio account. Now, these people will get an email address inviting them to create their own Obvio account. There's no fee associated with that account. They don't need to put a credit card in. They will simply get access to your organization and just this one that you've added them to. If you have multiple organizations, they won't get access to the other ones. You'd have to add them to other organizations manually. This keeps them limited to this one organization. Lisa, did you ask a question as I was talking?
I was just going to say, like I have a sales team, so I would probably have a setup for my sales team, correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay,
and
perfect.
what you would probably have for your sales team is the ability to start rooms. You may not give them like if I had a sales team, I would do something like this, sales, and I would give them the ability to start rooms. Because really what they're wanting or what you're going to want your salespeople to be able to do is go in and out of the various Zoom rooms that you have created once your team has started them.
Perfect.
So you're probably not going to want to give them access to make design changes or do other things because salespeople don't tend to be tech people. Now, once you've invited all your team and you're all good, now let's go back to events and we're going to create a new event. Now, the first time you create a new event, you're going to see a bunch of things and you may not know what they are. And they're all changeable, but let's just go through them really quickly. First off, your event name. It's pretty straightforward. This is the name of your event. So Blues Test Event for March 6th, or we could call it TV, the virtual event on virtual events 7.5. Okay. Now, next up is your unique URL. Now, this is going to be the URL that your attendees can access the login page, or if they're logged in, the dashboard at. Now, there's a couple of different URLs that you can have access to. Obvio, bootcamp.live, eventsoft.io, zoomiverse.com. You shouldn't see sagehub.com in your accounts. Let me know if you do. But essentially, this just is this is the main domain or what's called the top level domain. And you can name the individual. So let's just call this one TVE75, right? So the way I have this laid out right now, the event will be accessible at tve75.obv.io, or maybe call it 2024. These are unique URLs and they are platform wide. So if somebody has already chosen the URL that you're trying to pick, you won't be able to use it. Now, you can just, if somebody has picked, let's say, if I tried to make this TVE7, it wouldn't work. But if I changed this to tve7.zoomiverse.com, that would work, right? So the different domains actually allow you to use the subdomain or the unique URL that you're wanting. Next up is time zone. This should be, I would set this if I was you to the time zone that you speak in, right? So if you always speak in Eastern time, make it New York. If you always speak in Pacific time, make it Los Angeles, right? Your attendees are not going to see this. That is not for your attendees. What it's for is the various things inside of the admin where you can set times like publish dates and times. They're going to be set in Pacific time. So when you have multiple people in your dashboard making changes, if somebody's in Eastern time and somebody's in Central time and somebody's in Mountain and somebody's in Pacific, they're all looking at the dashboard in Pacific time. That's the purpose of the time zone. Next up, your start and end times. Best practices, I usually, if I was going to have this event, let's say the 22nd through the 23rd, I usually have my event start a couple days before that, let's say the 19th at midnight. Again, this is just how I use the platform, so we'll call it my best practices. They don't necessarily need to be yours. And I usually, we usually do something 1 or 2 days after the event. So if this event was going to be 22, 23, 24, I'll have the event end on the 26th at 11:59 p.m. There are some things that matter with the start and end date. Your attendees do not see this. This is not something where somewhere your attendees will see, why does this event start on the 19th when you know it starts on the 22nd? Number of expected attendees, this is just an estimate. We use this number for internal purposes, but it doesn't mean anything to you, but I would ask that you make it as accurate as you know, okay? Next up, the attendee default password. So the login page, by default, if you don't ask your attendees to create a password, you can create an event password as an example. So we may make our event password password. That's incredibly secure, but let's just do that for fun. Now I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to skip the favicon or favicon and logo, although you can set a favicon for those of you who know what that is. The logo doesn't do anything, again, outside of vanity. It sets the logo on your event listing page. So I'm going to go ahead and click create. And when I click create, my organization now has this one event in it. The virtual event on virtual events 7.5 tve.zoomerverse.com. Now, this little 3 dots here is where you can do a couple of different things to that event. You can duplicate it once you create an event that you really like. You can move it to another organization. So a reason why you may want to do that, if you have a design that you really like and you're doing an event for another company, or you have multiple companies inside of, like, underneath your umbrella, and you have a design that you like and you want to make it, be used for the other umbrella, you can move these events to other organizations that you are the owner of. And then, of course, you can delete an event. First time you access the event, the first thing you're going to see is a request to select a template. Now, each template is a little bit different. I'll tell you that the easiest template to customize right from the get-go, if you're just getting started, is the cards template. My current favorite actually is not available to you guys just yet, but should be very, very soon, and it's called Town Hall. It's what we used for the for TVE 7. But every single one of these templates were designed with conversion in mind. So oftentimes when I'm talking to clients about these different templates and people are like, well, which one should I use? Which one converts the best? They all convert incredibly well. That's what they were designed for. So I would say to you, don't worry about conversion. This is simply about aesthetics, which works better for you. If you want to see sample dashboards, you can just click on View Sample Dashboard under each one of them, and that will open up a real live dashboard for an event that we have done some design work for, and you can see what it looks like. Now, when you are selecting a template, you can start with an empty template, or you can have your event start with demo sample data. The demo sample data is going to make your event look exactly like these sample events, including the speakers, the sponsors, the backgrounds, and the FAQs. Okay, so all of that is going to be on inside of your demo sample data. But I think it's valuable, especially if you're just getting started, to take a look and see what does it look like so that you can make changes. So I'm going to go ahead and click select. And that is going to start my event. Now, once you're in your event, so let's go back to events. I've got the virtual event on virtual events 7.5. When I click on it, it takes me into the event now. It's no longer asking me to select a template because I've already done that. Now, there are, along the left-hand side, you have the various areas that you can make changes. You have your main event area or subheading, which has settings, statistics, your different templates. You can change templates after you've selected it. It will warn you it is not a one-to-one. Like the various templates all have their own unique design or unique elements. So when you try and go from one template to another, it will do its best to take everything that's over here and put it over there. But it never fits perfectly. You always have to make changes to it, but it's better than starting from scratch. Okay. The things that are super valuable when doing that is the fact that it copies your speakers, your sponsors, your FAQs, your Zoom backgrounds. It copies your blog posts. It copies your resources. Those are the things that are super important that it actually does copy, because now you don't have to recreate all of that stuff. If you already did a bunch of forms, as an example, none of that stuff needs to be recreated. It's just some design elements that you need to focus on. Okay. From there, we're going to go down to the next section which is check-in. And check-in could be called, another word for it could be called attendee onboarding processes. So we have 3 steps that you can enable or disable for the attendee onboarding process. And on the last call, I gave some ideas. It may have been 2 calls ago. I gave some ideas as to what I think are best practices for the different styles of events that we see. Right. So as an example, for a free event, I recommended that you turn everything off. Like, don't have a waiver step, don't have a password step, don't have a tech check step. But if you're going to do a 3-day event, you may want to turn on the waiver and turn on the tech check. We turn off the password. But you may decide that you want to turn on the password. There's reasons for doing all of these things. And I'll just say that's up to you. I'm not going to show you anything more than that on this password, on this check-in step, but this is where you set those things up. What I'm going to do next is go to the design section. And the design section is where you have access to modify your dashboard. Every template has some global styles. They're a little bit different by template. This is where you can modify your login page, your sign up page, your forgot my password page, your change my password page, your offline page, something called form report, which I'm embarrassed is still in the platform, but it is. And then something called scripts, which is something that Martin asked about earlier today, that we said is use it at your own risk because it's JavaScript. This is an advanced level move. Now, when you're on the dashboard editor, it's super easy to use. And for you, Lisa, if you're familiar with ClickFunnels, you're probably familiar with a couple of other page builders. Highlight or hover over an element. If you see a gear, click the gear. You're going to see a slide out config panel. The slide out config panel has up to 3 pages or 3 tabs along the top: settings, styles, and rules. Settings are going to be things like what does it link to, and a few things like that. Styling is going to be your visuals, right? So font type, in the case of buttons, font types, background colors, border colors. Do you want a hover color? Things like that. Rules are going to be reasons or like data-based rules that will show or hide different elements based on users. So if you're bringing your users in from your attendees in from Infusionsoft as an example, and they have a whole bunch of tags, you can create things that are only visible to people with specific tags. How you would do that: add a rule, select tags, includes 6666, right? So if that's my tag ID, if I'm using Infusionsoft, if I'm using ActiveCampaign, they use actual plain text. So
Very
double
cool.
tag. Yeah, that part is really awesome. You can also, for many, many components, have show from and show until timeframes. So you can have things appear and disappear automatically. The other thing that's really important for all elements on the dashboard is this enable disable thing. If you want to enable or disable pieces and parts of your dashboard manually during your event, you can create everything in advance, disable everything that you don't want seen, and then at specific times, you or a member of your team who you designate can go in and enable different pieces and parts as it becomes relevant. Now, the time-based thing, we swore for the first 2 years of having this platform, we would never add timing into it because we understand live events. Live events never run on time. But I had clients bug me enough and users bug us enough to add it. So you can use show from, show until, or you can just come in, enable, disable. Similar to other platforms, similar to ClickFunnels and a few other things, it takes up to 2 minutes for changes that you make in the editor to appear on the client-facing side of the dashboard. Okay, so just because you make a change right away doesn't mean it'll appear right away, and it doesn't matter how many times they refresh. Okay, so I will also say to you that when the cool thing about enabling and disabling things on this platform is when you do that, the user also doesn't have to refresh. The piece will just appear on their dashboard when it comes time, when that 2 minutes is up. And like I said, it can take 10 seconds or 2 minutes. Each dashboard updates every 2 minutes automatically, kind of pulls the system to say, hey, any changes? So if you update something and somebody is 10 seconds from that change, they'll see it within 10 seconds. Somebody else may see it, 90 seconds from then or whatever. Okay. Next, that's your dashboard. Another thing that's important, if you happen to see any elements that you hover over that has this little like two line button, that is a click and move, right? So if you wanted to move these things around, you can do that. On this particular dashboard, you can't move, click and drag between top and bottom rows. However, there are two rows that, and you can define that here. This particular template also only has these two rows. You can't expand beyond that, but you can create a whole bunch of buttons, right? So the reality is you can do a lot and still have, like, I don't know why you would have this many calls to action, but you can. Okay. And the other thing that I'll say is if you ever hover over something and you see that little copy button, that's what it's doing, right? It's allowing me to copy that button, and I click save, and now I've got two main stage buttons. If I wanted them next to each other, I just do that and I'm good to go. And that's going to be true in a lot of places. So anywhere you see a little gear like this here, this top right gear, this is the Obvio logo. If I wanted to remove that and upload the logo that I created for Amy earlier today, just upload that here. When I upload an image, I can like crop in on a specific part of the image, or I can just click skip resizing and it'll just import the entire image and then click save. What am I missing? There we go. Save, and it will add the image. Now, if I don't like the size of that, come in here, make a minor tweak to the size, click save, and there you go. Now, as you scroll down in this particular template, on the left-hand side, you have blog posts. On the right-hand side, you have a sidebar. The sidebar has downloadable resources that you can add to it. These downloadable resources, you can upload files. You don't have to host these files on Drive or Dropbox or S3 or something like that. You can literally just drag and drop files that you want to host as resources, downloadable resources for your attendees right here. Or you can link out to external resources if you want. The only thing I'll say to you, there is a limitation. Resources can't be larger than, I believe it's it's either 125 or 150 megabytes, but it's a good size. Like truthfully, you shouldn't have downloadable resources that are bigger than that in all likelihood. And if you do, you probably have them hosted somewhere. So you use that. From there, very similar to buttons, you'll notice that resources can be dragged and dropped within each other without any issues. If you hover over a sidebar element, there's a gear. Again, you'll get settings. So I have a title here. I have a description that I can place. Under styling, there's some spacing things as well as rules. So you can have different downloadable resources for VIPs than you do for general admission, as an example. Inside blog posts, this area on the left-hand side, if you add an additional blog post, the most recent is always going to be at the top, right? So if I just kind of type some stuff here so that you actually see it. So this is my most recent blog post that I just added. There is no drag and drop for blog posts. That's because they're time-based. Most recent at the top, oldest at the bottom. So if I click on the gear here, and you'll notice that this is a larger editor than just the slide out editor. If you do want to change to the slide out editor, you can just by clicking that link. That's true in any of the places that you see that, by the way. So this particular blog post was created at March 6th at 6:54 p.m. If I want this one to be newer, then I'm going to go here, change my year to be this year. And why not? Let's just make it November. When I click save, now it's going to be at the top, and down at the bottom is the other one. Okay. Inside of blog posts, you can also have buttons. Or if you take a look inside of blog posts down at the bottom, you can also change that to be forms. So that is super handy because you can actually create forms. There are submittable forms that are baked into the features of this platform, and you can have forms on your dashboard for people to do exercises, submit things to you if you want them to submit like a laser coaching application, something along those lines. That's what we use those forms for oftentimes. Surveys are something else that we use that for. Sample event agenda here in this particular case, if you look at the bottom of the sidebar and click add item, you're going to see all of the different things that you can put in these sidebars. And these elements are all movable, right? So if I take a look at this downloadable resources right here, you see again those two white bars. If I click, I can drag that and put it above the sample event agenda if I want. Pretty easy just to move around. And within the sample event agenda, this is something that I think is really, really valuable that I personally love. When you create your agenda and you time items, okay, those items are going to be in your time zone. So, or the event time zone, actually, when you are creating this. Now, when your attendees join and they look at this, these event agendas, from their perspective, they show up in their time zone, whatever their computer is set to. So you don't have to put a time zone calculator on the dashboard or anything along those lines. It will automatically change to the date, format, and time zone that's appropriate for them. So something that we highly recommend is inside the name of the session, as an example, don't put Thursday. Okay? Because if you put Thursday and then you have somebody join from Australia, they're going to be confused, right? So instead of putting Thursday, you put day 1. And I don't mean because Australians are easily confused. I just simply mean because their Thursday or our Thursday is their Friday, right? Exactly. So that text field, right, doesn't change automatically. Only the date and time does. The other thing that I'll tell you about this date and time field, it's the only part of Obvio that automatically changes language in addition to format. So if your computer is in Spanish and you happen to have your time zone set to whatever Spain time zone is, you'll see November 1st and the time zone in the format that is appropriate for that country and that language. So that is the only area of this platform that is language automatic. Anything else, you can make an entire dashboard in Spanish just simply by typing in Spanish, and the event agenda will go along with it. Okay, so that's your primary editing capabilities. Other things that you should pay attention to, if you go down to features, take a look at speakers. Okay. The speakers page is enabled. The speakers page, the sponsor page, the FAQ page, the Zoom background page, they're all enabled by default. But you can very easily disable them if you don't want to use those pages. Just click the disable toggle up at the top of them. Sponsors, same thing, disable. FAQ, same thing, disable. Now, if you want to add a speaker, let's say you're like, you know what, Grant's not going to be speaking at my event. Why is he there? Well, he's there because we selected the sample data. And if you remember, those speakers are actually there on the sample data. Same thing, Blue's not going to be showing up. No problem. We'll remove Blue. If you click add speaker and click on the gear, you can add their name and their bio goes here. You can add an image for who they are. Why not? We'll do, this doesn't make any sense, but again, you can crop in on images, right? Nice and easily. Same way you can on many other platforms. And then I'm going to go ahead and click save. And you can hover over any area again, like this area right here has a gear. If you click on that, you can change the title of the menu text. You can change the title right here. So rather than say sample speakers, you can say meet our hosts as an example. And then you can have some descriptive text right below, or if you don't want that there, just delete it and it disappears. Okay, so that's the speaker page. We're going to leave that enabled. Sponsors will disable it, but again, you can add sponsors if you want. And FAQs. FAQs, you can add as many as you want. There are some inside them, you can either enable or disable them, of course, like pretty much everything on the platform, because oftentimes clients' dashboards build during the event, like they reveal more and more pieces as the event goes on. So this, again, I said it earlier, but it allows you to build your entire dashboard as you want it to appear at the end of the event and then turn stuff off. right? Because it's so much easier to do that before your event happens than while you're standing on stage or on a 15-minute break where you have to pee, drink water, walk the dog, and turn on 3 buttons and enable a blog post, right? Like, don't do it that way, or create a blog post. Enable, so much easier than create. For FAQs, you have an option to show on load or not show on load. The difference being if they are, if it says show on load and it's turned on, then when the page loads, the answer will appear. If they don't show on load, then the question is there, but the answer is not, and they have to click on the question to see the answer. I only use I only disable show on load on FAQs for really, really, really long FAQ pages. And even then, we'll usually keep a few of them open and then put some descriptive text up at the top that says, click on the question to view the answer, right? Because it's not 100% obvious to people, although admittedly, it's how so many pages work, right? So if I go to the attendees page, you see this is essentially how it works. So if I had the first one enabled and the next 2 disabled, that's how it would appear. Okay. Now from there, we're going to go down to attendees. Easiest way to add your attendees is just to manually add them, right? So I'm going to add Blue, Melnick, blue@poweredbysage.com. If you're doing a small event, this is the fastest way to do it. Just manually add them, go into the user, copy their login URL, email them their login URL. That's going to be your easiest way to do small events. Slightly larger events we'll get to in a second. Now, if you have a slightly larger event, you can import, right? Imports are done via CSV. We have a sample CSV file that we can send you, but essentially it's first name, last name, email address, phone number, tags, custom field, or custom fields. And you can import any amount of data that you can think of into the platform without any problems. If you have a CRM or like you have a system that you are using where people are registering for your event, we integrate natively with 7 services: Keep, MailChimp, HubSpot, High Level, ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, and Ontraport. Each integration is slightly different, right? Each integration uses a slightly different mechanism to identify attendees, to automatically import them. In all cases, they all then will automatically write the login URL back into your CRM so that you can email your contacts, your customers, your attendees, their login URL by merging that custom field directly into whatever email broadcasting system that you use. Now, if your CRM is not supported, like you don't have one of these 7, then we also support Zapier natively. We have a Zapier application on the platform that you can install and use, and then connect Obvio to almost any other platform. Well, any other platform that Zapier integrates with. Okay. Next up is points. That's a deep dive. We probably won't, given the time, we don't have time to get into that. Next up, I'm going to go into Zoom areas just really, really quickly, because one of the things that's important is, how do I get my attendees into Zoom, right? So it's like, okay, Blue, you showed me how to get their login URL. And if I open up, tve.zoomiverse.com, I'm going to log in as this particular attendee, right? And you see all of these buttons that we've created. That's a shit show, but whatever. But none of those buttons go anywhere, right? When I click, or when he clicks the main stage, or when I click the main stage, it actually does go somewhere because I don't know why. Because that's the sample data. There we go. So under Zoom areas, wow, that is actually weird. That shouldn't be going anywhere. Anyway, regardless, under Zoom areas, this is where you manage your Zoom access. So think of areas as ballrooms at live in-person events, right? So If you're going to have multiple stages, you're going to want a Zoom area for each stage. Zoom areas are your ballrooms. So I'm going to just create a main stage ballroom. I'm going to leave the settings as the default. I will tell you, in the last year, I have not once changed these settings on any of our events. Not a single one of our event have I changed these settings. They're there. You can change them. We don't. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click create. And when I create it, it creates this main stage area, and it also creates one room down here, right, where it says the number 1. I'm going to go back to Zoom areas, and I'm going to also create a help desk, right? Because so many of us probably have a team member, and you can put them in Zoom and have a button that says help desk. And if people have questions, they can leave the main stage, go into the help desk, and talk with a member of your team. It's a nice way to provide a personalized service to your attendees. It's free. It doesn't require any technology. Those people can be anywhere in the world, which is awesome. Okay. So now we're going to go back to design, and I'm going to go into my main stage, and I'm going to have the destination be join area and send it to the main stage. Next thing I'm going to do is actually remove that main stage right there. And I'm going to then go into the help desk and have it go to the help desk. So now that I've done that, these two buttons actually point into Obvio's version of Zoom. Now, for you to get into Obvio's version of Zoom, you go into the main stage and you open up the room down here by clicking Open Rooms. Now, if you are not within the date range of your event, actually, that's not true. If you are after your event, it won't open. But if you are before your event, it will open. If you are well before your event, it'll open up in something called test mode, which allows you only to get a couple people into your event. I would generally say most people only will. This is why I said open up or create your start time to be a couple of days before your event actually starts, so that you or your tech team can go in and do testing a couple days beforehand. If you really want to go and do full testing like a week beforehand, then change your event date to be, a week beforehand, which is what I'm going to do right now. So now that I've done that, oh, you can't actually have an event start date be in the past. I forgot. 7:08. And actually this one is in Pacific time. So this is actually 4:08. No, it's in New York time. 7:08. 7:10. And there we go. PM. Bugger. Save. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go back to Zoom areas. I'm going to go into the main stage, and I'm now going to click the start button. Now, when I do, because I didn't refresh my page, it's going to tell me I'm in test mode, but just ignore that for now. I'm going to go ahead and click start. Whatever. I'm going to click start again, and I'm going to share my full screen for a moment with you guys. But what that now does is gets me all the way in. Hold on, let me stop my screen sharing. Where is, oh, there we go. Because I'm in Zoom, it's hard to show this. But basically, when you click start, it has you join Zoom as the host of the meeting. So you don't need to, you're never going to have a login for Zoom, right? And if you have multiple Zoom areas, you're not going to have multiple logins for Zoom. You only use your one Obvio login, and that allows you to get in as co-host to any one of the rooms that you create inside of your Zoom application. Now, one thing that's really important if you click open rooms and you start the room and you're in Zoom and you're all set and you're ready and you're like, why aren't my attendees showing up? There's one last thing before your attendees that can get in that has to happen, and that is this open area, right? Again, think of areas as ballrooms. It's as though, remember, and Lisa, you know this, we come from the live event world, right? So what we want to do is when we let our attendees into the room, we want the room to be ready. We want the music to be on. We want the lights to be down. We want to have set the mood exactly how we want to set the mood, right? And this allows us to do essentially that. So you open up the room first, you set up your music, you set up your video, you set yourself up and you say, okay, am I ready to let attendees in? Yes, great. Now come in here, click on this open area button. So it's toggled open. And now when attendees click on the main stage button, they will be let in to Zoom, right? Because it's paying attention to these things. So it allows you to set up properly. That's kind of a really, I did that in half an hour. That is a really broad overview of Obvio. We didn't get too deep into how to do a bunch of stuff, but hopefully that gives you a solid baseline for how to do a lot of things on the platform.
That was way more than I expected, so I appreciate it. I'm totally geeking out. I cannot wait to play with it. Thank you for going into that detail. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I just
no
want to know
worries.
where to start, but now I'm like, I can't wait to get in there and play. So
Well, I'm happy to hear it. And I part of the reason why I did it, first off, we had time. Nobody had asked any other questions, and I had a couple, I had 30 minutes still on my calendar, so I was like, why not? And I know there's quite a few of you in Lisa's same spot, right? Who are new to Leap, who are new to Obvio, and hopefully that gives you a good solid foundation. The link that I posted earlier today or earlier in the chat, it does have a lot of the stuff that we went through in greater detail, because it's 16 hours instead of 30 minutes. And it's well searchable, right? So those videos are hosted on the Searchy platform. So if you're looking for something specific like speakers or areas or things to do like that, you can, of course, go in and try and find the piece and part that you're looking for specifically. With that being said, don't ever hesitate to come onto this call if you're going along and you get stuck in some way, in some place. Come on this call, ask the question. Something else that you can do, Lisa, I heard you say when you ask the question that you can't always make the call. So something else that you can do is you can go on to the update.obv.io, like onto the dashboard for this call, and you can always submit a question, right? So you can submit a question at any time, and then all of the recordings for these Q&A calls are hosted on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and you can go and, pretty much like we make sure that all the questions that get posted get answered. So if you post a question, you can pretty much be sure it's going to be answered. The other thing that I'd say is we have, for a company that doesn't do any sales, we have 2 support team members who are there to help you. Both Heather and James are awesome. They're available inside the application between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday, via the live chat widget, which is bottom left-hand corner of the Obvio window. There's a little blue chat icon. It's probably not there right now because they are likely offline. Or if it is there, you're going to get an offline message. And then the other thing you can do is you can email us help@obv.io. And we try to respond to people within 24 hours or less. Sometimes Grant will respond. Sometimes I'll be up in the middle of the night and respond. You never know. But we respond
I have
pretty
to
soon.
jet. I have to go. I have to jump up on another call, but I just want to say thank you, Blue.
You're
You're
welcome.
amazing. I love this. So I didn't want to cut you off, but I have to go. I have another call.
Go.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you later.
Okay,
All
bye.
right. For everybody else, Dr. Sally, do you have a quick question?
Yes, you mentioned to me the other day that the 2 templates that had the most visual impact were cards and what? And I didn't write down the second
Nifty.
choice. Nifty.
Nifty.
And my other question is, within the trainings, I was there when they were live just watching, so I'm going back through them. Do you outline sort of the basic rules that almost everyone should include when they're setting up their event? Or does that just depend on you and the event?
I did not, we did not talk about that. Are you talking about, when you say rules, do you mean the check-in stuff? Or do you
Well,
mean
yes, Ben, you were
or do you
going
mean
over a few
rules,
things.
or do you mean rules like for buttons and stuff like that?
I didn't realize there were two categories of rules.
Well, there's actually not. So there's rules inside the platform, and
Right.
rules inside the platform could have the word visibility in front of them. They're visibility rules. They define whether or not an item is visible to specific attendees based on the tags that they may or may not have associated with their account. Okay. So the reason you would use visibility rules is if you, let's say you had two different attendee types. This is the easiest example for people to understand. You have VIPs and you have non-VIPs. And for your VIPs, you want them to see something, but you don't want your non-VIPs to see that. So you create a visibility rule that says, if tag includes my VIP ticket tag, then show VIPs this item. So that's what rules are used for. They're super powerful. And once you understand it, it's super, super easy. The hardest thing for people to understand is, how do I bring in that data, that information about my attendees? Once you get that piece, the rest just kind of falls into place.
Okay, I'll work on it. Thanks, Blue.
You got this. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, I hope this was valuable. Appreciate you guys. And we will be back again next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And again, like I said to Lisa, I meant it to say to all of you, if you guys have any questions between now and then, you can, of course, post them in the Ask a Question area that's on the dashboard. But if it's a timely thing and you need an immediate answer, just email help@obv.io. And our team can support you. Yeah, appreciate you guys. And we will see you all next week.